What a wild first episode, first of all. We really pack a lot in there.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that's so interesting is just having the sheriff who really is kind of there to uphold a lot of the rules, and everyone around her is very like gray in terms of following those. Was that particularly appealing?
I think it's really, really fun, to deal with somebody who's so capable and on top of it. And her personal life is such a mess, not by her doing, just by life. And she's got to sort of navigate the complications of like life happening and the, wanting to have it all be controlled and in a box and neat. And I think that's what is so great about this character in particular is she's a very capable woman, first sheriff, female sheriff of this town. She's got a lot to prove. And of course, it's all sort of bubbling underneath the surface and all of the stuff happening with her kid and her dad and her ex-husband, it all starts to like unravel.
Even in the first episode, we get a real sense of things in her childhood from, having to be in foster care for a bit, being taken away from her dad, and how that impacts kind of the rest of her is really interesting. Was it great for you as an actor to have some of that stuff kind of wrapped into the story that we get to see as an audience to play with?
Yeah, there's a lot to play there. We keep, and every episode brings a little bit more of information, a few nuggets here and there. She obviously had a very complicated childhood, which makes so much sense that somebody who had such chaos would then want to be in a position of power and of like, being in control and also in the position of caretaking and sort of like trying to like keep this town the community that she wants it to be and creating her family as an extension of this town. So it's really it's a complicated world, but it's really like it gets down to the core of what people I think want, which is stability and love and family and connection.
I think the relationship with her and Cassie is going to be really interesting, obviously, given where she stands with her ex-husband, but also just it's very clear that she's someone who Mickey's kind of like taken under her wing a little bit, and they kind of share that great story that Cassie shares in the first episode that I won't spoil about how they met. But can you tease a little bit about kind of how that relationship evolves throughout the season?
Yeah, I that story in particular is really beautiful and it's I think it's really interesting that she's found this deputy that she can take under her wing, who she very much probably sees aspects of her in herself, of Cassidy in herself. And, their relationship is complicated by the fact that Cassidy starts dating her ex-husband. And then there's like stuff that Cassidy goes through later in the season that really rocks Mickey. And so, I think that the show, that's a great example, one example of many in the show of like we don't shy away from those like gray relationships and those dark corners.
There's a really interesting community element to this story where, this is a circumstance where she's in this position, but like she's still just eating lunch at the diner with like everybody else in the town and knows everything. Was it interesting to be able to kind of play with someone who has power, but that community is also so important to her?
She's not that figure of like, people have to revere her and fear her and like be in awe of her. Like she's very down to earth and she knows when to be in control and when to use that power that she has. But for the most part, the way that she operates is by the more she's friendly with people, the more she's going to get out of a situation. The more she approaches it from that aspect as opposed to the like aggressive big city way to see things, the more she's gonna be able to quickly access what she needs to. And it's one of the reasons why her and her partner Boone butt heads in the beginning is, he's coming from Oakland, he's coming from a bigger city, and he's like coming in there hot. And she's like, whoa, 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 slow your roll. I know these people, I know how this works.
Tell me a little bit about what it was like to kind of foster that like mother-daughter relationship, particularly as someone who had a tumultuous childhood herself.
Yeah, I think, where this character falls short is that she operates on a like, how do I solve this? Because that's what she does for a living. And she forgets about the connection with her kid. And I think she's trying to sheriff the circumstance as opposed to mother her child when she needs it most. And you see their relationship really kind of grow out of it. But really, there's some bumps on the road.
I think something that I appreciated and feels actually quite different to a lot of similar shows is that she's someone who's obviously strong, but she also like has a great vulnerability that she's not necessarily like shying away from, or we're not shying away from necessarily like showing it on the
Right.
show,
Right.
which I think is really interesting and maybe a little bit different and a little bit refreshing. Did you kind of get that on the page and just kind of working through this character?
Yeah, it's very much on the page, the vulnerability. And actually, my work with the writers has been to be like, I get this, and I know that she has to show that, but I would like to see somebody struggling to show it. I think she struggles with being open, and she struggles with, if she's feeling something, she's like, no, I'm not, nope, I'm not going to say, I love you first. She's like that person because she's had to have her guard up in her life. She's been hurt and she's been abandoned. And so that's not somebody that's very readily going to just be wide open to everybody. So it's really fun to know that that's there and that she is capable of it, but that she struggles to open herself up to it.
I'm from Toronto. The show films in Toronto. I have to ask you a little bit about your experience filming in the city.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of traffic. People warned me, and I was like, I've lived in LA. It's fine. It's not fine. But other than that, it's been really fun. I mean, we're not quite in winter yet. I'm a little bit worried and scared what that's gonna feel like. But I've been really pleasantly surprised by how warm everybody is and how welcoming they are to the chaos of film shooting and TV shooting in their city. And it's shocking how you can find so much green space and mountains and things. And it's supposed to be Northern California, and it actually works.